Hello and welcome to the channel. On today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you how I made this deep neckline bustier with a structured sleeve. So if you haven't yet seen the drafting video, please go down to my YouTube channel, or I'm going to leave a link at the description box. So let's dive right into today's video. So now the first part we'll be working on is on the yoke, and I cut out 2 pieces for my yoke this way. So now I'm going to open it up and place the other one on it. I added 1/2 inch on this part on the shoulder and beneath it. So I'm going to place this and I'm going to go ahead to stitch it up at the neckline and then turn it to the right side and stitch the armhole area. So after that I'll be moving on to this pattern. On this pattern I added 1/2 round at this part, at the lower part in front, and at the upper part when I was cutting out my fabric. Here I added 1/2 inch round it on below, and I didn't add by the side and at the armhole. So right, this is my pattern. I mistakenly ironed hemming gum on it, so I just removed it. So I have 2 pieces, and this is the lining piece, and I've gone ahead to iron my gum stay on it. So you can as well notch this part because that's where your yoke is going to end. So now this is the main fabric, and I've gone ahead to cut out 2 pieces just like I did for the lining. So now this is what I have, and we're going to start working on the other side. And this is the side part, and I also ironed gum stay on the lining piece, and this is the fabric I cut out. This is a satin doll face, so you can use any fabric of your choice. So now I'm going to go ahead to start joining my pattern. So before I start joining, I'm going to iron my wording on it. So I'm using a light wording. While I'm using a light wording, I'm still going to put on a bra when I'm wearing this dress, but if not, it's advisable to use a thicker wording, or if you want to make use of a breast cup, you can go ahead and do that, an already made breast cup. So the same way I'm cutting this for my light wording is the same way you're going to cut if you're using a thick wording. So at my under bust, I'm going to fold it up this way, and I'm going to go ahead to trace it round and cut the upper part. So while I'm doing this, I'm using a light wording, so I don't need to trim out any 1/2 inch at the upper part, because I'm not going to have any bulky effect. So after cutting this, I'm going to go ahead to iron the shiny part to the back part of my satin. So now I'm going to place, and I'm going to cut out for this side also. At my under bust, I'm going to go ahead to take it up also, and I'm going to cut. So I placed it on fold, and while cutting the side, take note that the bust is fuller by the side, so you can go ahead to go in a bit, or you can measure your nipple to nipple plus 1 inch by the side when cutting out. So next I'm going to trace the upper part and the side leading to the bust. So after I'm done cutting, I'll go ahead and iron it on it. So I'm done ironing, and this is what I have. Now you're going to join, place each part on the other, and you're going to join with 1/2 inch. So this is my yoke, and this is what it looks like right now, and I'm going to go ahead to join my pattern with 1/2 inch. So when I was joining, actually I made a mistake, so I'm going to still explain it so that you don't make the same mistake I made while I was joining my pattern. So now go ahead and place and join with 1/2 inch. So when you're joining, make sure that your main fabric is 1/2 inch away from the mesh. So I made that mistake. I didn't leave about 1/2 inch, so that by the time I turn the armhole area, I'm going to have about 1/2 inch to turn it. So go ahead to stitch it. So just like I said, I made a mistake at the armhole at that area, but it's fine. While I was joining it, I just picked a pinch from the armhole area. So go ahead and place this also, and you're going to pin it. You're going to continue pinning it till you get to the point where your yoke stops. So if it's okay for you to sew directly, you can do that, but for a beginner it is advisable for you to pin before sewing, because it saves you a lot of stress and your yoke will not pass the point is supposed to stop. Now after pinning it, I'm going to go ahead and stitch on it with 1/2 inch this way. So after I'm done stitching, this is the result. So I'm going to attach my lining now. To attach my lining, I'm going to place it facing this way. So, and I'll also place the other side. So now to attach your yoke, you're going to make sure you start where your yoke stops at the main fabric, and you're going to take note of that part. You can even go on by notching it so that it will be easier for you to identify it. So after notching it, flip it to the wrong side and start pinning it. So it's best to pin before sewing. It's going to save you a lot of stress. So after pinning it round, you're just going to carefully pin it and make sure that that 1/2 inch you sewed on before you pin it out. Now after you're done pinning, what you're going to do is you're going to stitch on that same line that you use in joining the main fabric to the yoke, and you're going to repeat the same process for this part. Go ahead to pin with 1/2 inch. So just like I said, at the armhole area I made a mistake. I was meant to leave about 1/2 inch before stitching up, but that's not a problem. I went ahead to just take about half or a pinch from the armhole. So I'm done joining both sides, and this is what I have. Now place your main fabric, start with a pinch and sew to the end with 1/2 inch. Start with a pinch on your lining and also sew with down with 1/2 inch. Stitch up your armhole and the sides of your pattern. So after I'm done sewing, this is what I have. As you can see, this is where my yoke stops. It's a bit deep, so, and it's not too revealing, it's just okay. So next we are going to start working on the back. So this is the yoke for the back. I cut out 2 pieces for each side. I added 1/2 inch on the lower side, round it on the neckline and on top. So I have about 4 pieces. So I'm going to go ahead to stitch on this part that I'm showing you right now. After stitching on it, on one side I'm going to add like a loop to it, because I'm going to add a button to the back part of the dress. So after I'm done sewing, this is what I have. So please don't forget to trim out the excess so that your yoke will be looking nice. Even for the front part, go ahead and repeat the same process. Trim out the excess before turning it, and go ahead to iron it because the mesh can be a bit tricky. Now I'm going to join the back part to the front part of my yoke. All I'm going to do is to place it this way, and I'm going to use the one for the back. If you notice, I didn't stitch up the side, so I'm going to wrap the front, sorry, I'm going to use the back to wrap the front part, and I'm going to go ahead to stitch with 1/2 inch at the upper part. And after I'm done stitching with 1/2 inch at the upper part, I'm also going to stitch with 1/2 inch by the armhole side. Go ahead and repeat the same process for this side. Place it and stitch with 1/2 inch at the upper part, and by the side you're going to stitch with 1/2 inch. Don't forget to trim out the excess that you have. So after I'm done joining, this is what I have, and this is my back pattern. So I didn't cut out my dart, I'll be stitching up my dart. So go ahead and add 1/2 inch at the upper part and at the lower part. The lining piece, I ironed my gum stay on it. So now we are going to join this to the yoke. Now where my dart is, I went ahead to notch it, and you're going to start joining your yoke from that part. I'm going to go ahead and just show you just in case. So this line on this part, go ahead and notch it on your pattern. That is where your yoke will start from the back. So now I'm going to go ahead and place that part I notched on my yoke, and I'll stitch with 1/2 inch. Repeat the same process on this side. place it, and I'm going to go ahead to stitch with 1/2 inch. So after I'm done stitching, this is what I have. Now I'll be introducing the lining piece, and also on the lining piece I notched that point. So place that notched part meeting the other notched part, and you're going to stitch with 1/2 inch by the side at the upper part and by the zipper side. And on this part also, go ahead and repeat the same process. Place the notch part on the notch part of the main fabric and stitch the sides, the upper part and the other side. So this is what I have. Next we'll be working on the skirt pattern. So this is the skirt pattern that I cut out actually. So now I've gone ahead to cut out my lining, and on the lining, when we were cutting the skirt, I added 2 inches for folding or turn up allowance. Now on the lining piece, you're going to minus that, and you're going to place your lining on your fabric, stitch it down. So after you're done stitching down, you're going to flip your lining this way. Make sure it meets at the end, and after meeting at the end, measure about 1.5 inches because you've already sewed 1/2 inch. Then turn up your skirt. So I also did that for the back pattern. Now I'm going to attach the lower parts of my dress to the upper part with 1/2 inch at the back. So after doing that, I'll repeat the same thing for the front. Go ahead to notch the middle of the skirt because you're going to be creating a basque effect on the dress. So after you're done notching it, go ahead to place it and make sure the center of the blouse touches the center of the skirt because you want your dress to fit very well. So after that, I'm going to go ahead to trace out the waistline, the basque waistline I have on the blouse on the skirt pattern. So do that and trace out the waistline. So after tracing out the waistline, the next thing you're going to do is to go ahead to cut it down. So if you're finding it difficult, you can go ahead to pin it down. So now this is what I have, and I'm going to go ahead to trace this out. After tracing it out, I'm going to join it. To join it, I'll flip my skirt this way, start joining from the center, stitch with 1/2 inch to this side, and from the center stitch with 1/2 inch to the other side. So after you're done stitching, this is what I have now. And next we're going to go ahead to shape the dress. So to shape the dress, flip it to the wrong side, and this is what you're going to have. Measure your shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust line, shoulder to waist line, which is 17 inches, and from there I'm going to go ahead to measure 7 inches, which is my hip point. Now I'm going to go ahead to insert my body circumference. So to do that, I'm going to measure what I have here, which is 6.5. My bust circumference is 33 divided by 2. I have 16.5. So minusing 6.5 from 16.5, I have 10 inches remaining. So that 10 inches, I'm going to be sharing it on both sides, which is 5 inch on one side and 5 inch on one side. So 5 plus 5 is 10 plus 6.5, I have 16.5. So the reason why I did this is so that my dress, the joining I have at the center will still remain at the center of the dress. So the same process I took for the bust, I'm going to still repeat it for the under bust side. So why you're doing this is so that that center line will still be at the center. So I'll take it down to my waist because my under bust and my waist is the same measurement. So now at my hip I have 22, and my hip circumference divided by 4, by 2, I have 20. So I'll mark 1 inch at both sides of my dress, and I'm going to connect and take it down to the end. So now I'm going to go ahead to stitch on my dress. After stitching on it, we are going to work on the sleeve on the dress, sleeve of the dress, sorry. So this is what I have on fold. I have 15.5, which is 31 inches. The half inch on it, sorry, is for stitching. So the total length I have is 10 inches, and I'm going to add 1 inch for stitching, which is half inch on both sides. But after cutting it while I was sewing, I noticed that this was big, and I reduced it to about 7 inches. So at this point I'll come in by 2 inches and I'll connect to this point, and on this part I'll go up by 2 inches also connect it, we are trying to create a certain shape, so that's why I'm marking this. So go ahead to cut this out, and after cutting this side, go ahead to also cut the other side. So just like I said, I had to reduce mine because it was looking a bit big. So what I am going to do now is to place this and cut it on another fabric, and that one I'm going to be ironing a gum stay to it. So I'll go ahead to do that. So after I'm done, this is it. I've ironed a gum stay to it, and the next thing I'm going to do is to sew my boning. So at this point, you're going to leave about ½ inch at the side, and you're going to use your sewable boning or your reddening boning, sew it to this side, then sew to the other side. So you can go ahead and sew at the center because I added another boning to the center, and you can sew as much boning that you want. So I'm just showing you the effect I have already. So you're going to place your main fabric and you're going to stitch on it at both sides immediately after your boning line. So but before I'm going to stitch on it, I'm going to add an additional boning to the center so that my structured sleeve is going to stand when I pin it. So this is what I have. I've gone ahead to iron it. So what you're going to do is to fold this and you're going to stitch it to where you want. So to see how it will look, you can go ahead to stitch it, put the dress on your mannequin and stitch it. So this is what I created. I measured my arm round and I'm just going to stitch it by the sides of the dress, and this is what I have. So go ahead to add your appliques on it. So after I'm done stitching, this is what I have. Please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and join us in our next video. Thanks.